Welcome to our broadband town hall. Hopefully we bring some information. We get phone calls daily on what's going on in the fiber and broadband world. So we thought a couple months ago that we'd put something together for informational. It's always good, in my opinion, to get together face to face and those folks online that can, instead of trying to write something. So here we are tonight. So a couple housekeeping items. Number one, thank you for coming. Thank you for those that are online. We appreciate the engagement. This is what it's all about. We want to make sure that our co-op is doing what our member owners are wanting from us. So it's good to hear from you all. This town hall is being recorded. So we will post it to our website, and we'll probably do a mass email out. So if you want to go back and review anything, you can. And those folks that missed it could also go back and review it. We start every meeting around here with a safety minute. So I'm going to also start this meeting with the safety minute real quick. So there's fire exits. There's two. There's one this way and one that way. So if we need those, head to one of the two. There's restrooms. Men's out to the left. Women's is out to the right. For courtesy at all, if you don't mind putting your, I had to do it myself here a minute ago, but put your cell phones on silent. For those of you that have questions, folks online, there's a chat button online. We've got someone that's going to be monitoring the chat. So you can put those in at any time, and we'll hit those up in the question and answer section at the end. Those of you in the room, we just ask, hold your questions till the end. We've got a section. We can spend as much time as y'all want answering questions. And then last, if we don't get to all the questions, we will post. We've got a scribe in the room, so we'll get those scribed down. We'll make sure we get the answers out in some of our marketing material. So if you don't get your question answered, or if you don't even get it asked tonight, feel free to always call us too. So give us a call and we can get you an answer. So go over a little bit of the agenda here. We're going to go through short introductions. We got a representative from our local EDC. It's going to go over some facts and some data. We're going to hit up a timeline. So we put together a presentation that kind of goes through from 2005 till today, kind of what we've done in this space and then kind of where we're heading. Then I want to give you some details from our feasibility. We did a formal feasibility study with a partner of ours, and so I'd like to go over some of that data with you. Then we'll wrap up and kind of go over what are our next steps. And then last, we'll go over through Q&A. And when we do Q&A, I just ask that come up to the podium and we'll go through questions kind of one at a time as we get there. So my name's Brett Plamp. I'm the CEO here at Decatur County REMC. Crystal Greathouse, who's our project manager, unfortunately is under the weather, so she's not going to be able to join us tonight. Sam Ruff is our technology administrator, better known as the IT guy. And then Jessica Parker is joining us from Greensburg, Decatur County EDC. It's the Economic Development Corporation. So she's going to jump in right away right now with some slides about kind of the impacts and what broadband is, and we'll go from there.
Hi, as Brett said, I'm Jessica Barker with Economic Development of Greensburg, Decatur County. I've got a few slides for you. I'll try to keep it brief. I do have a lot of data in them. First up, mine's not as fast as yours. First up, some current statistics we have. While Decatur County shows access to internet on the FCC map, data reports a mix of homes outside of the county seat do not have 100 down 20 upload megabyte per second. Many of you probably know that if you have issues with your internet currently. What that can lead to is the learning divide. So CERPC, who's Purdue Regional Development, they have, with them in partnership, they have created a report for us. And in there, they've shown that 13.7% of children in Decatur County have access to a computer, but no home internet. That access to computer probably is because many of the students have technology from their classes that they bring home from their school systems. With that being said, some reasons they do not have internet could be due to the cost of the network or no network serving their address. Decatur County Schools has embraced technology more so than some of our neighboring communities, as you notice from the map. But students here are facing a larger homework gap due to the fact that they have no home internet. So a lot of their classwork is to be done on their tablets and their computers. So next up, some current risks that we face if we do not provide fiber or internet. We are unable to provide a fast and cost-efficient internet, which will equal a loss of an important resource, which means our young adults native to our county and our community. Without that working aged people, there will be no way to create enough tax revenue to pay for things needed to protect and help our citizens. Lack of fiber to the home, which is FTTH, I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, networks, lead to population decline, unprepared workforce, risk to healthcare resources, and an education divide, like I spoke about the homework gap, but increase in like your post-secondaries. And then loss of business attraction, lack of job opportunities, and decreased home values all come from that. And that source is from the Fiber Broadband Association. It's a national association. I pulled a case study. It's the Medina County, Ohio. They are a fiber early community. So in 2013, they started their middle mile fiber network and they completed that, but they did not have the last mile provided. That came in 2021 and it was created with the Medina fiber, not to be confused with Medina County fiber, which they had already had as a network. With that, they were able to serve for homes and small businesses, but also provide smart city applications for the municipalities. And some examples of that are their water treatment sensors. And then they were able to put sensors for like their waste management. This is affordable and it's driving costs down for other private companies in the area as well. So a lot of these citizens who previously had like Comcast or Spectrum, they were able to get lower rates by going to their municipality who now serves Medina Fiber. Because of that competitor in the region, they had to stay, to keep their current customers, they had to lower their rates for fiber. And then you've got a balanced relationship with those like communities. Who is Medina Fiber, which is their tech solutions and human engagement. Those are the ways they worked to get this embraced within their community. Currently, if you go on their website, you can see a lot of testimonials about like this one I posted. They just got theirs yesterday. They live in town, 3 kids too. They game online, stream, TV, things like that. They don't have to buffer. They don't have the same issues that they previously had. You know, people are working from home, telecommunications. They're not having the same issues as previous. On the next slide, you've got so for Fiber Early, you've got their Rural Economic Cooperative. For Lorraine and Medina, they spoke about how it's now not just their county, but it's reached into other counties because they saw how the model was working and they wanted to push that out through the neighboring communities. In 2020, Medina had 65 county residents working outside of their county. And so that was still the time when they were broadband. They had their fiber within for the middle mile, but not the last mile. By 2022, they reduced that number to 59 Medina County residents working outside of the county. So they were able to see an increase in people staying within their county and working within their county, whether it was working from home or working within companies in their own county. Speaking with their economic impact for growth, they had a $650 million over 3 years economic development increase, and that's companies coming in. Of those companies that came in, 65% of them used Medina County fiber. So that means they were using the option that was provided with it when they came in, not going through outside companies. And then speaking with their economic development director, she said that companies from Europe that are looking at their county, some of the top questions they have are, do you have a municipal network and how many carriers can you offer us? They're able to leverage the fiber network that they have for telehealth companies and home security companies, like defense companies for some of those. For my next slide, we've got local impact. For Decatur County, you'll notice that we are of the top to increase in digital economy jobs. We are one of 2. Jefferson is the second one, and that's from a SERPC study. So for broadband driven, you've got a couple of reasons. Our economic development, it removes barriers and allows for easier expansion, provides employees the option to work remotely, which leads to job retention. So they need one of those jobs to stay in our community. Education points to allowing students access online libraries, videos, photos, interactive lessons, to name a few. You know, you're able to take post-secondary classes from your home and stay here instead of traveling, which gives you extra expenses. Healthcare, patients have the ability to utilize telehealth for routine appointments. You have your medicine delivered to your doorstep, online bill pay. These options cut expenses for the end user and are possible due to broadband. With that, you know, if somebody's if they do not have the option to drive, they can do that telehealth option for their routine appointments. And they can even have, if they have devices, those devices can be monitored by their medical professionals from their house because they have that internet access. For community, you've got some key points like rapid disaster response, convenient online self-service that are for your municipality, you know, things like your public safety and communication networks, your backup systems, you have remote security monitoring, and then disaster preparation areas. So these are key things that people look at when they want to move to our community, or key reasons people want to stay in our community, because we have the public safety and the ability to revitalize our community. And then finally, impact to the end user. So PCRD, which is Purdue Center for Regional Development, reported that for every $1 invested in broadband returns nearly $4 to the economy, which is a 400% return on investment. For businesses, it allows businesses of all sizes to take advantage of Internet of Things, which basically means they can do everything, that they can automate everything they have within their business, workforce mobility, and improve research because they now have the ability to go elsewhere for their information. Broadband also opens doors for local businesses to access and boost their profits. That's kind of a given. And then long-term community growth means you're connected to schools and libraries, educated workforces, virtual medical service, and more, which we previously mentioned. And then for the Purdue study, they focused quality broadband expansion in rural areas can provide $12 billion in net benefits to anyone in just 20 years. So that's our state alone that we are giving those stay in-house. And then lastly, for the provider impact. So I've done a lot of research on different case studies. The one at the top right is Bone County, Texas. And so they were a telecommunications company. Obviously, you see it's a sparsely rural area with legacy product eroding. All they had was the phone. And so their company was dying. They needed something to keep them. So they utilized their poles that they already had to keep their community alive. And then the bottom left is Lafayette Utility Systems. They branched out into what they call Lus Fiber. And it helped their community provide over 1,000 new jobs with a total new wages exceeding over 60 million per year. So they were able to grow substantially by obtaining fiber. So that is all my information. And then if you need to contact me, I am down in City Hall. You can come in at any time. I've got my email address and my phone number there. Yeah, that's all I have.
Thanks, Jessica. All right, so now what we want to do is go over kind of the timeline of what we've done here locally at Decatur County RAMC. And I know this is a eye chart, but this just kind of shows you where we've been focused since really 2005 until today when it comes to a broadband type solution and where we've dove into. So I do want to start by saying, you know, at this point, we do not have an approved fiber project. So where we're kind of at in this is we're at this feasibility, right? We're trying to build the business case, and we're trying to do the work that obviously you need to do up front. So I just want to be real clear that you know, we are not at this point building fiber. We are really at that feasibility level, and that's the data that I would kind of want to share with you as we go on forward. All right, so back in 2005, it came through strategic planning that there was a need from our membership for some type of internet service, right? So we partnered with a company called NRTC, who's a industry partner who had the technology from a satellite standpoint. So back in 2005 of July, we offered a program called Wild Blue, satellite-based internet service. At one point in time in peak, I think we had about 426 active accounts. That was back in around 2009-ish. These other ones are basically the same companies and partnerships, but they launched more satellites and they looked at different packages and pricing. So really the difference between these four was really just a name change with different packages and options, pricing options and things like that. I can tell you today, we just have just shy of actually 200 active accounts. It is a solution, it's satellite, it has its issues, but it is a solution that we have been offering since 2005. So then we get to January of 2019. We did a member survey, and this survey was really, it wasn't just focused around internet, right? It was really focused around customer satisfaction, member satisfaction. It was an input into our strategic planning. So bear with me, some of these results, could be a lot different, and you will see that, than what we got today, because this survey was not specifically around, do you want fiber, right? So you can see the results at this point in time. 73% answered the question, do you have in-house internet? And then 27% said no. Main reasons for not having it was 33% said they didn't need it or want it. 25 said it's too expensive, and 19 said it's not available. Again, that's a very targeted survey that was done on more than just the internet. So it's just one set of data. Next slide. Back in July of 2019, we partnered with a local existing provider. Our strategy at this point in time was let's see if we can help partner local providers today to provide this option as far as broadband to members. So we partnered with a local existing provider. We created a business case, and basically we never got to the point where the business case was something that we wanted to move forward with. Then in 2020, in January, was the level 2. This is the next level 2 state funding grants. Again, we explored some opportunities with an existing local provider. And again, we did not submit for those grants at that point in time. And then this wonderful thing called COVID hit, right? So March 2020 completely changed the landscape of our role, internet providing. So we had to sort of change what we're doing. So we looked at really changing our strategy. What were we going to do going forward? What were some immediate things that we could do right away to help our members with this COVID? We had more people at home working, as all you probably know. We had students at home, getting taught. So what we did was we partnered with Watch Communications. I'm sure some of you have heard Watch. In July of 2020, we signed an MOU with them. And really what that was is using our databases from a marketing standpoint and helping get the word out that Watch had some areas covered. And we wanted to make sure that members were aware that Watch was out there and does serve some areas. And then in January of 2021, we also revisited our Viasat packages. So we were looking at our pricing structures, and what we kind of came across was there's a lot of members that don't even know we have Viasat. Still today, there's a lot of folks that don't know that we have it. Again, it is satellite internet. It's got its own issues, but it is a solution. We did a marketing campaign, and really that marketing campaign was targeted at just making members aware that that is an option more than anything. Then in July of 2021, Next Level Round 3 grants came out. And again, we looked for opportunities in level 3. Keep going. So then in between July and October, we were working on strategic planning. We actually met with realtors, a bunch of different stakeholders within members. And one thing that came out of that was broadband, right? We heard it loud and clear. So what we ended up doing was management came with a recommendation to the board to fund a feasibility study. So what we did was we partnered with a group called NRTC. They've done hundreds of these feasibility studies across the US. So we partnered with them, and we got approval to go ahead and spend the money on this feasibility study. So then in April of 2020, we got the feasibility results. I'm going to go over those results here shortly. And then because of the feasibility study and what it was telling us, in May of 2022, we again went to the board with a recommendation for budget dollars to do grant writing and engineering work. So what I mean by engineering work is you have to create a bill of materials. So you have to have a high level design in order to apply for some of these grants. And then from a grant writing standpoint, those of you that have written grants in the past, it's very critical to make sure that you get the data and how you write those grants out in order to get funding. So we were given the dollars in the budget from the board to go ahead and write for those grants and the needed dollars to do some of the engineering work that we needed. Sam's going to give you an update on kind of the outcome of some of those grants and where we're at on that. In August of 2022, one of the grants is a middle mile grant. And what middle mile is it's really not that into the house, right? It's getting certain subsets of your networks connected essentially. So we were approached by it's a consortium. I can't ever say that word, but that's basically made up of co-ops and existing telcos. Their main objective is to build middle mile, right? So there was an opportunity that we were posed with to basically build backbone from southeastern REMC down south all the way up to Rush Shelby, which goes right through our territory and hits some of our subs up. We looked at that, and at the time right now, the board did not approve that, although it's still an ongoing thing as far as the grant standpoint. Reconnect 4 came out in October. Sam's going to hit up some of the data on that. And then we kicked off, in October, we kicked off another member survey. This member survey was targeted just at the internet. And I suppose some of you all did that. We had really great results. We're going to share some of those results in a minute. And then middle mile broadband grant, again, Sam's going to hit up some of those details here shortly. Last but not least, the FCC maps that Jessica was talking about earlier. We're going to have a call to action here shortly that Sam's going to go over. The maps were just released literally weeks ago. These maps are very, very important to the state funding that we'll get or that we'll have an opportunity to get. So Sam again is going to hit up some of that information and what that means. All right, now to go into the survey results. Again, this is fresh right off the press. We literally got this like 2 days ago. So anyway, we had 1,419 total members responded. Doesn't sound like a lot. That's pretty high, right? You typically, our surveys, some of the better surveys that we had, you usually get 800. 800 is actually pretty good. So we had 1,419. That's a high turnout for a survey. 992 of those were email. 427 were mail. What's really important in a survey is that you get your demographics covered, right? That it's a good snapshot of your entire service territory. I don't know that I could paint a better picture of a good subset of the population, right? So it shows that's pretty much encompasses our entire territory. So we got spots from everywhere. So I appreciate those of you that took the time to do that. So now I'm going to go over some of the results. First question is, do you have internet service at your location? 73% said yes, 27% said no. Of those ones that said no, we asked to try to get the locations of those. As you can see, pretty spread out throughout our territory. Next question was, what is the main reason you do not have internet access at your location? 45% said, and so that number's a lot different than the one in 2019, right? We think a lot of that has to do with the fact that we sent this was specifically on internet, where the last one in 2019 was really a member satisfaction survey. So 45% said they don't have available, 28% said poor reliability of available providers, 15 too expensive, and then 11 don't need it. Next question was, how much do you pay for your monthly internet? Really the thing to draw your attention is 34%, it's kind of spread, right? But 34% is that sweet spot between 51 and 75. If you did the survey or if you see the results here in a minute, we were the bottom level tier, which is 250 by 250. So 250 upload, download 250 up for $69.95. So sort of what this tells us is we're in range of what competition is. Next question is how much download and upload speeds do you pay for? So this was a speed test that we asked folks to do that did the survey. And you can see, and this will make a little bit more sense when Sam goes over some of the requirements for some of these new grants coming out, but you can see pretty low speeds for folks that do have access. How much interest would you have? Again, these prices for these different levels really came from our feasibility, and I'll get into a little bit more of that here in a minute. The main one to look at here is 69.95 for 200 both ways, 49%. That matches very, very close to what we had actually built into our feasibility study. So that's a good data point for us. Okay, we can kind of validate, that's one data point to validate our take rates, what the take rates would be. Next question is why would you not be interested? The main takeaway from this one is 51% are interested. So now I'm going to dig into the feasibility results. So just to give you some high level things that we were talking about when we did this. Number one, this was done at the beginning of the year. So these numbers are, I'm sure, changed, right? Inflation has increased costs. So first thing is the board discussed, how are we going to do this? Are we going to serve some members? Are we going to serve all members? How do we want to do it? After long discussion, it was very clear in our feasibility study, the scope was going to be, we're going to serve every single Decatur County REMC member. So that was the first thing. The second thing, and I don't plan on going through all the options and the different modelings, but the nice thing about it is the folks that we used and partnered with the feasibility study, they have a model. Literally, it's a database of actual data from other co-ops that have done fiber. So it may not be the exact numbers that we would have here locally, but it's a good database of real numbers for other providers. So one thing we looked at was, okay, are we just looking at fixed wireless? Are we looking at, fiber, or are we looking at some hybrid options with some wireless? So we did look at all those. What's in our feasibility study was fixed fiber to every single home. We also looked at serving areas outside of our territory. This is businesses and residents outside of the territory. And we modeled that a bunch of different ways. What we ended up with in this feasibility is literally our members. Not saying it couldn't in the future happen if we would go down this path, but what you're going to see as far as the numbers is just our territory. And I hit on this a little bit earlier, but these costs were as of the beginning of the year. With COVID has brought the supply chain issues, inflation, so these numbers could be a little outdated. Again, we are at that high level business case trying to build this business case. So there's going to be a lot of studying that will have to be done in many different areas to beef up this business case once we get to a point where a decision would need to be made. So the project scope, this is a map of our territory, and I know it's probably an eye chart. The blue line represents a ring. That's really built from a modeling tool that our partner used, basically. So you input all your map data, and then it kind of spits out, this is the best model of how you would run your backbone and your distribution. So the feasibility made up a fiber backbone of about 122 miles. The fiber distribution would be about 787. We'd pass 8 substations and 6,731 members. And again, that number changes weekly at least, but that's the number we used when we originally did the feasibility. So now I'm going to go through some of the survey results. So 909 fiber miles total available to 6,731 members. In every house we pass, we would be able to do a drop. This is an estimated capital investment of just over $42 million. And I did want to touch on, Dale brought up a good point earlier, is that $42 million is the capital it takes to make this happen, right? So it's the labor, it's the materials, and what we call make ready. So I think there's a lot of folks that just think, oh, you guys can just hang this on the poles and wires that you already have there. And in all cases, you can't do that. And the reason is that some of the poles aren't tall enough to meet all the clearances. Some of them don't meet strength requirements. You're hanging a lot of weight up there. And so there is what we call make ready, which is infrastructure updates you have to do in order to be able to hang wire. And then some areas, it's going to make a lot of sense to go underground. If you've got a stretch, and I'm just kind of making this scenario up, but if you have a stretch, it's a mile long and every single one of those poles is going to have to be updated. for height, then it's probably feasible to look at underground for those areas. So we did carve out about 20, I think the feasibility study, we carved out about 25% would be underground. The rest would be overhead. Take rate that we put in is roughly 49.65. So we didn't have any of the survey data before we used that number. This number is critical to the business case. What we ended up doing is we looked at what other REMCs that are doing this, what their take rates are, and we use that as a model to kind of figure out what do we think it's going to be for our territory. We ended up with 49.65. If you remember before showing the survey data, it's pretty close to that. So our initial offering price was going to be $69.95. That's for 250 by 250, so 250 up, 250 down. And one thing I'll say there is it's a balancing act of, okay, we want this to be, as cheap as we possibly can for the member, but we also want to make sure that the business case can stand on its own feet, right? So you got this balancing act of, okay, we have to have revenue to support the business, but yet we want the lowest cost option that we possibly can. So if you roll all these numbers up and you get to a payback that is reasonable and the board felt like would make sense, it's roughly over $13 million you need in grants. That's a minimum, right? I mean, we would obviously go for way more than that. That's sort of a minimum. I'm assuming with the cost of everything that has gone up, it's probably more than that. What I will tell you is if you take 13 million out of the 42 million, it's not an unreasonable ask. It's not unreasonable to go get that much, especially in some of these grants that are coming out, which Sam's going to go over. There's billions of dollars going into this from a grant standpoint. So it's a simple payback. If you get the 13 million, you get the take rate that you're looking at, it's $42 million. It's basically 16 years is when it would pay itself back. Positive cash flow after the first 3 years, and your income statement would be positive after year 4. And again, if you guys want to go back to that at any point in time, you'll be able to get on our website and it's being shared. Now I'm going to turn it over. As you see, the main thing, our next main step is going to be to go get as much funding as we possibly can. That's really what the business case hedges on. If you can't get some of those dollars, it's going to really be tough from a business case scenario. So that's where all of our efforts are focused right now. And Sam's kind of heading that up. So I'm going to let him kind of talk through some of the grants that are coming up.
So some of the grants that were recent, I'm going to talk about some of the grants that were available to us and some that are in the future. Reconnect 4, Middle Mile Grant, and BEAD, and the Okra, Indiana grants. Reconnect 4 was a recent grant. This was kind of what we took to the board and said, hey, we wanted funds to go after this grant. At that point in time, they hadn't released what the requirements were for that grant. We just knew there was a lot of money available with it. Once the requirements were released, they were based on a point system. We looked at it very heavily. We kind of decided that our max points would be 100 out of 175 points for this grant. And talking to people that do this, that have been involved with it, they felt a competitive grant is around 130 points. So we did not invest any money towards this grant at this point in time. Most likely there will be another Reconnect 5. They'll probably change the requirements for it, and we'll look at it again at that point in time. But we did not pursue the Reconnect 4 grant. Middle Mile Broadband Grant. We kind of talked about Middle Mile, but it's the broadband infrastructure. It doesn't deliver fiber to your home. It serves the backbone of the internet. We looked at the partnership with Accord. We haven't pursued that, so we did not go after Middle Mile Broadband Grant at this point in time. This grant, there was over $1 billion in funding across the nation. Then we have the Indiana Okra Office of Community and Rural Affairs. They've already done many grants. They're getting ready to do another cycle. As of this point in time, we don't have what the qualifications for that will be and what date they'll be releasing those qualifications for that. We just know from the past in order to qualify for it, you have to deliver at least 100 by 100 internet to people. And they really focus on areas that have less than 25 meg down. They do have a dashboard, and this kind of just shows over the last 3 to 4 years how much money they've awarded, how much they've invested, and this is just the state of Indiana. So we will be, once they release the requirements for it, we will be looking to try to get funding from this as well. The big one though is BEAD. It's the Broadband Equity, Access and Deployment Program at the federal level. There's over $42 billion set aside for high-speed internet access. BEAD, they set the qualifications. They haven't released the qualifications yet, but we do know they look at two things. They looked at, is the home unserved, which is less than 25 meg down and 3 meg up, or is the home underserved, less than 100 meg down, 20 megs up. So those are, we know that's going to be a focus of it, but we don't know all the qualifications for this one. And then that rolls down into the new broadband maps that the FCC recently released. The funding for BEAD will be divided up based on these new maps that they've created. The maps are much better than what they used to be. They actually drill down to the home level, to your address level, and I'm going to get into that here in a second. But this is the critical piece that we need help from everybody here, your neighbors, your friends, because we need to make sure these maps are as accurate as possible for the state of Indiana. So I'm going to dive in here. Bear with me while I switch.
Yeah, so talking a little bit while he's getting this up, these FCC maps they're location based, so you can actually look up your address. And the reason, again, this is really, really critical is because these are the maps the federal government's going to use to divvy up that $42 billion to the states. So the more accurate that these show we are underserved, the more dollars the state of Indiana is going to get.
And we will provide, and we'll probably send out marketing material, how to access this, how to do this. But I wanted to show everybody where it is, how to access it. But we'll provide more information upcoming in the following days. There's a bunch of webinars that we'll be attending to try to make sure that we can test this and do it in a proper way and try to get these maps updated. But you literally go to broadband.fcc.gov. It'll bring you to this page, put in your address. It's going to populate a map on the left-hand side, and those are going to be residential and businesses areas, those dots. You'll notice when you're first in here, there's a default filter. So almost every dot you're going to see in Indiana is going to show that it's green and served. That's not realistically what it is. I mean, why a lot of you are here, because we are underserved. So I want to kind of step through how you go through those filters, how you change them, how you look at them, and then how we do the challenge to what's in the area. So on this right-hand side, you'll see it will show you every provider that the FCC has for that address. Providers' names may not look real familiar to you, such as this one, Benton Ridge. It's actually Watch TV. If you do the drop down, you can actually see some more information about the company. So if you go back up here again, up here to this gear icon, you can actually change the filter settings. And this is where it gets interesting from the grant process, because the grant is really only looking at all wired services and fixed wireless. They are not looking at satellite at this point in time. They've said satellite is not a reliable internet source. So from a grant perspective, they're throwing out satellite. So when we go to apply for a grant, it doesn't matter if you have SpaceX or not, or if you have, Viasat, they're not looking at that as internet to your home. So you can change that setting here. You can change it to all wired and licensed fixed wireless. That's what I would recommend to do. And then the other thing is BEAD focuses on under 25 by 3 and 100 by 20. So you can change that also. And if you change it to 100 by 20, you'll notice the dots turn red, and that's underserved. And those are the grant dollars that we'll be heavily focused on, because in our area, we're very heavily underserved. If there's not Comcast or Great Plains in the area, there's not good internet. So with that said, you can then go in here and you can look at the data. So I want to just use Watch TV or Watch Communications as an example. Say I'm out in the country, I've called Watch, but there's a line of trees on the back of my property and I can't get fixed wireless to my house. But they say I can get 100 by 10. That's not realistically. You had communications, they probably came out and said, unless you put up a 55-foot tower, you're not going to get it. So that's where you can challenge this, and you can come up here to availability challenge, click on it. You select the provider that you're challenging, that they say they can give it to you. You select them, and then there's more options down below to give more information. You'll want to send my challenge to the selected provider. Put your information in. You can put your experience. So, you've called them and they said, no, we can't serve your area. You can put that in there. If they are serving you, but you're not getting the speed you want, go do a speed test. You can put in, take a screenshot of it and you can attach the file and, do kind of a challenge that way, saying, yeah, they say we can get 100 by 10, but we're actually only getting, 10 by 2 is what realistically we're getting. So these maps are much better than what they used to be, but they're still not perfect. They probably could never be perfect. But with end users' input, we can make them better. And like Brett said, the $42 billion is getting divided up on states based on these maps. That's pretty much what they're looking at. So depending on whether you're served, underserved, or not served is where the funding's going to go. And then the state of Indiana will then decide where those fundings go. So it's going to be up to the states of who actually gets the grants at that point in time. But we have to try to get these maps updated so the state of Indiana has money to give so we can get grant dollars. So I'm going to jump back into the slides here. Bear with me for a second. So then we want to kind of talk about those next steps. And I kind of alluded to this with the maps challenge. As of right now, the dates that we're getting back is that we need to have the challenges submitted by January 13th of 2023. So about a month, we have to start submitting those challenges in order to get those maps updated. We expect with those challenges that the FCC is going to take those back, and in mid 2023, they plan to start distributing the funds to the states. And I assume within the time period, they're going to open up the application process and we'll be able to start applying for those grants. As of right now, our best bet is that the grants will be available to us early to mid 2024. That would probably be the soonest that we would see grant dollars from the BEAD grant. During that time, we're going to explore all other grants. I mean, we mentioned the OKRA. If Reconnect 5 comes out, there's grants all the time. So work with EDC, work with local state officials. We're going to be looking anywhere we can get funding and seeing where we could possibly fund this project to make it a feasible project.
Yeah, and to his point too, so we're really connected, Sam specifically, but really connected to our statewide association, which is all 38 co-ops have access to that. And then also our federal association, which is MCA. There's a ton of resources literally every week coming to us, and we're tapping into those resources weekly. I also have a quarterly meeting with all of the CEOs around us so that we're getting updates, viewing for partnerships, things like that with other REMCs that are around us also. So those are some of the things that we have been doing and will continue to do as a part of this project. The last thing, as far as kind of the next step, is that board approval of the fiber to the home project upon successful grant awards and validating the feasibility. And again, the way I explained this earlier was, we're really at that business case level right now. So, yeah, we've made some assumptions and we've thrown those things into the feasibility. Those things all have to be studied. We're working on those things. We'll learn a lot of those types of things through the applications, because the applications for these grants force you to do some of those studies. But that's kind of where we're at. Once we get that, as you can see, the biggest thing here is to get grant dollars. That's going to put some legs on the business case. So that's the first hurdle. That's the one we're working on the most right now. And then once we get those grant dollars, if we can get those grant dollars, we're going to prep up the business case, do the studies that we need to do, and then get that over to the board to make some type of decision. So that's kind of where we're at right now. The next slide is we're going to kind of open it up. Questions, inputs. And again, if we get to a point where we don't get everything answered, actually we finished through these slides a little bit quicker than I thought. So we have plenty of time to answer questions. What I would ask is, if you have a question, please just line up behind the podium. And then we do have a few board members that are present with us also, Steve, Dale, and Brian. So if you guys want to ask questions, feel free. We'll try to do our best shot at answering them. And then we'll hit anything up online too. So. Gotta get one person to come up. There we go.
I'm sure they got some of those here, live quite far back up on the road. Me, myself, I'm a half mile back. I'm sure you guys here. What's it gonna cost us to get back there, and if you even came back there? Because if not, then, I'm not gonna waste my time and your all's time doing the surveys and stuff like that. Because if it's like going to cost me, like $2 or $3 grand just to have you all dig or run over top just to get back half a mile.
Yep.
I can't afford it.
Yep. So that's a great question. The way I'll answer that is in our feasibility study, when the board made the decision that we wanted to serve 100% of the members, which I 100% agree that's the right decision. What that meant is that we're not going to charge a connection fee or anything. So in other words, the answer is what you're going to be paying is what that $69.95, if that's what you would choose. We do not plan on doing like a line extension like we do on the electric business today, where you have to pay a aid in construction, right? So literally, if you sign up, and what we've learned from other co-ops that have done this is if you do charge something like that, right, you're going to end up hampering somebody's ability, just like you just explained, right? You're going to hamper that, and then you're not going to have that revenue stream. And so what we've learned, other co-ops have learned is don't charge that. Bake that into that $42 million, which is what we've done. So there is, to answer your question directly, there will be no charge according to the feasibility we have today in order to hook up, essentially.
And just to reiterate what you said before, if you can't go underground, you guys will try to go overhead, correct?
Well, ideally, we would do everything overhead, because we already have the assets and the vertical assets. We already own them. We own the easements and everything there. But there will be cases where it's going to be cheaper to go underground. Those are the cases where we have poles that aren't high enough. There's all kinds of different things that may come up. But ideally, we would want to definitely go overhead.
Okay, which just to add on to that, if for some reason the poles ain't high enough and you cannot go underground, does that just mean that we're just a luck? Or?
No, we'll get there. We can get wires and poles just about anywhere.
I'm just curious because I'm down in James County.
Yep.
I'm a half mile back, and it's you got to cross creeks and a dam and everything else just to get where I live. So
Yep.
That's why my biggest concern is just you need to get there, because if not, then we're not like you say, don't waste your time.
Yep. Nope. I believe that we would serve 100% of the members. We'll find a way to get there. We've done this as far as poles and wires for a while now, so I'm sure there's a way we will get there.
Thank you.
I got,
So two things. One, if this all gets approved to serve 3,400 or 100% of our members, what's this process look like? Is it a year project, a 2-year project?
that's $1 million question there. So I'll give you some of the information I know from the folks that are doing it today. Typically, I mean, Southeastern, they were about 1.5 to 2 years. With the supply chain constraints, it's going to probably look more like 3 years, but it's pretty quick. And I think what we would do and what other folks are doing is they're prioritizing the folks in the areas that are literally like not served first. To the best ability that you can, you try to prioritize it and build out. By the time we get the BEAD grants and things, maybe these supply chains and stuff aren't a constraint, and you can do it in 1 year or 2 years. There's a lot of folks working on this. I don't know if you have anything to add.
The feasibility study was built on 5 years to completely serve everyone.
Every single person, yeah.
And then what do we look like in 10 years, 15 years, 20 years? What does this project look like then? Because technology changes.
Yep.
Just as well as yesterday is already outdated today. And I don't have a landline at my house. Never have. I know a lot of people are starting to go that way where. So what's this look like in 10, 15 years?
That's another question that I'll give you my opinion, but let's be honest, I have no idea what it's going to look like in 10 years. One thing that we do, and I'll just give you the information I get at a lot of the seminars and things that I go to from the experts. One thing they'll tell you is fiber is sort of, I don't know that I would sit here and tell you that it's future proof, because I don't think any of us know that, but fiber is, it's a speed of light, right? So right now, the limiting thing is electronics, and electronics come out and are just quicker and quicker, and stuff's getting faster and faster. There are a lot of people that believe that, the speeds that we're seeing today that may be acceptable in 10 to 20 years from now, it's going to be way outdated, right? I mean, it wasn't that long ago that, 5x5 was pretty quick, right? The old dial-up stuff, if you can remember that. Try going to do dial-up today. It's horrible. So my thought is the way that everything is connecting. I just bought a washer the other day and the thing's it connects to my Wi-Fi network, right? So I think that the speed requirements are going to be only getting faster, and there's certain technologies that just aren't going to get us there. But that is a huge risk that the board has been discussing, and I'm sure will future discuss, is how do you make sure that this is the right call and that we don't have the issue that you're talking about. And you can talk to the experts in the field and they can argue both sides of that, right? The reliability from a fixed, a wireless wire is known to be very, very, very high compared to some other technologies, but that's the best answer I got is we'll weigh those options as we go. And kind of go from there.
I will just add that the feasibility study does take into consideration upgrading your equipment over a span of time. So we're not putting $42 million in 5 years and expecting it to last for 30 years. Your fiber, you do expect that infrastructure 30 to 50 years before any type of replacement, other than splices and stuff like that. But it does bake in upgrading the infrastructure. So if we go from 1 gig, now we're at 10 gig because of better electronics and stuff like that. So it does, because electronics only last so long. So we have to bake that into the business plan.
Request. Let's make sure we go deep enough so that I don't trench through any.
I hear you. The other part of that too is he kind of touched on it a minute ago. What we baked into the feasibility is sort of what all the other co-ops are doing, which is sort of you want to put in the max amount of pairs you can, right? So my point of saying that is you try to put in the top technology at that point in time so that you're not, underdoing yourself for later. Good questions. Any online?
If I can get it right. Can you said something about that unserved would be served first?
Possibly. We haven't gotten that.
Saying, okay, you're gonna have unserved at the north end of the county.
Yep.
Have unserved, but also, I know it's a totally different company outfit, but ETC ran fiber optics right down State Road 3. 100 yards from my house. So I mean, you got the capability already. So why is it not available?
Yep. So we have, and what I will tell you, I can't talk through a lot of this, but we are in constant conversations with some of the local existing supply or providers today, which includes Southeastern REMC as far as partnerships and things like that. I'm not going to sit here and say that this is going to look like a partnership when it's done, but I think that makes a lot of sense. So those are things that we'll have to study more once we get kind of past
So
it.
you're basically saying it's going to be at least 5 years.
I would suggest that we're not going to get this BEAD money if we get it until they're telling us right now, beginning to mid 2024. You guys know how that works sometimes, right?
I mean, we have to buy a set right now, but
Yes.
Garbage.
I wasn't.
There's a reason I said it isn't satellite internet.
Yes.
Kids will be out of school.
Brett, my question is, how many other co-ops across the state are already doing a fiber project?
So I don't have specifics on states, but I do have specifics. So there are 88, so this is across the United States. There are 88 co-ops that have finished building out, and there are about 200 in total as far as either finished or in process. In the state, I want to say there's at least half that are either working on it or finished.
And why is Decatur County so slow?
Amen.
And I don't know that that's a question for you more than the board.
Yeah. I'll answer as best as I can to that point is we've been looking at this from the very beginning and the strategy has just shifted. And some of that is COVID. It's just shifted to let's work with some existing people that do this like for a living. What we've learned through that process is the businesses don't align, right? So if you have someone that has shareholders, they have to make a profit compared to the co-op business model, they don't align. So what we've learned through some of these partnerships, opportunities that we've looked at through that timeline is that's hard to make that work. We don't have to make a profit, but others, they need 3 to 5 year payback, and you're sitting here seeing 16 years, right? So,
And like Jessica is here from the EDC. So are the EDC, the city and the county planning to commit to helping this project succeed?
so we've met, it's actually, I'm on the EDC, so it's a strategic priority for them, for us. And yes, we have met, I know Rick, I saw him earlier somewhere. We have met with the county and the city. They're well aware of kind of where we're at and what we're doing. We haven't talked specific like dollar amounts by any means, but we are in constant communication with them. And yes, we've started to have some of those discussions, even as so.
I think that's just more of a point, like the EDC has a lot of information to present. And if there's anyone that's against the project, I think it's so much better for our community, not just those that need it. But it's going to bring a lot to the community. So hopefully our board members can get on board with that.
Yeah, and one other thing I would say about the EDC, so you have the school superintendents, you have the hospital CEO, commissioners. So we have a good group of folks that I believe this will benefit majorly on board and willing to help where they can. So we'll keep those partnerships in mind for sure. Thank you for your questions.
One online says, will REMC offer VoIP, voice over internet telephone?
Yes. So do you want to answer that?
Well, it is part of the feasibility study and some of the grants do require it. So As of right now, it is in the feasibility study. Once we get there, I can't promise that that will be an option. But a lot of the grants do require some sort of VoIP in that you provided. So I would say highly likely that it would be an option for the fiber.
So that's phone.
Yeah, the phone service over the fiber line.
Yep.
Brad Monsler, live in northern Jennings County. Thanks for all you guys are doing and thanks for this meeting. So our families live in northern Geneva Township and then also in northern Columbia Township.
Okay.
So just appreciate all the work you're doing. I think everybody in the room needs better service and you guys are working towards that. I also work full-time for Indiana Farm Bureau, which advocate on so I'd be glad to leave some, we're promoting the speed test and it could complement what you guys are doing. You guys are probably already doing some of that. So I'd be glad to leave some of these here for anybody that wants them. So
Yeah, that's
because we're working on our behalf, just like you guys are, to challenge these FCC maps mid-January.
Yep.
So, but appreciate all you guys are doing and I'll leave these.
Appreciate it.
If you guys don't
I'm
mind.
gonna leave them on that table right there.
Yeah, we've
Because I know this is a process.
Yes.
So very much. So.
Thank you.
My question is, knowing how federal grant dollars, state grant dollars work, what's your contingency plan? What's plan B if we don't get these grants? Because every day we're falling further and further behind. And my concern is just hearing that the board wasn't willing to invest in a piece of this several months ago. If we don't get the grant dollars, what's that mean?
Yeah. So the contingency plans that we've been talking about are partnerships and leaning on the folks that do it. Honestly, our entire focus right now is trying to get as many of these grant dollars as we possibly can. The contingency plans are really kind of going back to an old strategy, which is trying to help the folks that do it today and any type of partnerships that we can get.
As a member, I mean, I really hope that the board members really step up to this and help, because I work from home. I'm a remote worker and it's awful. I mean, I went through, I don't know how many providers. I've been at EDC meetings and other community partnerships. And, you know, the first thing I always say is broadband. Broadband is way more important than the article coming out in the paper on a new pool. I know we need some infrastructure and quality of life in this community, but broadband has to become a priority.
Robert Online said, are other options such as 5G considered in addition to fiber?
In our feasibility, we did not consider, we looked at competitiveness, but we did not look at that as an option. No.
I'm kind of slow, but I live right on the end of our line. The house next to me is on southeastern RMC. How come they're so much further along than what we are? And the thing about them is southeastern RMC, they've got a lot more hollers and hills, so it's costing them a lot more money per mile to set this up. How come we're so far behind? Because my next door neighbor's already got it.
Yep. You know, I understand their feasibility study did support a little bit of that. Their feasibility study did look a lot different than ours. They're a lot less served, I would suggest. Their feasibility study looked completely different than ours. You're right, though. That territory is much, much worse than our overall territory. Totally agree. And there's also, you know, we had a conversation with them and I would suggest to you specifically, give them a call. I have gotten, so there's no territories necessarily in this broadband thing, right? There is no territories. It's essentially open to competition. And so we got a call from the CEO down early on when we started this and they made their decision. And his question to me was, are you against me serving in your territory? And I said, hell no. If I can get one more member access to fiber, you go right ahead and serve. I want you to do that. We looked at it, doesn't impact the business case that much for the rest of the members. So my one suggestion would be you may want to call down there and just let them know that you.
I went to them 5 or 6 months ago because I live close to All's Good.
Yep.
You know what happened? Everything goes in a circle, you know.
Yeah, and those are some partnerships too that we're going to be looking at in the future. They're focused on their members right now, but that doesn't mean in 3 years or whenever we get some of these dollars, right, that there wouldn't be some things there too. So,
Right.
thank you.
Just a little history, I guess, of what has happened in the internet. In 2005, I think that was the year, I'm not sure exactly, but there were grants available at that time to do internet. And the board at that time had EPC that actually picked up that grant. And it's a case of the IOUs versus the co-ops. They, just like the gentleman before said, they weren't going to run it back to your driveway without money. And that's the advantage of the co-op in that you're going to serve everybody equal. And we let that happen, that they serve what they serve Lake Santee and they went on 46 and south, but you can't get connections. So that's why I'm in favor of this project, and I'm glad that the RMC is going to be doing that. So thank you.
Thank you. Questions? Is there anything online?
I just had one question. I just wanted to know, where's the board at on this? Because I've gone back 2019 on all the minutes of all the board meetings. I haven't seen any votes on broadband brought up in those minutes. In fact, broadband was mentioned probably less than drive-through ice cream was in the minutes. Where's the board at on that? What votes have been taken for broadband, and where's that at? What's that look like?
Do you want to answer that or you want me to take a shot at this?
Go ahead and take a shot.
All right, so I'll give you my shot, then I'll actually have the board chairman answer. So there have been a couple votes. One vote was for the middle mile grant, which was Accord. Again, that's not to the home. That vote was tied 4-4, which it kills it. That is not a dead project. That project, we are still clarifying and Accord is still going after the grant. So that's not dead. That actually passes 5 of our substations and it is a backbone. So it's not going to serve any members, but it gets your foot in the door. It gets things going. And again, I don't think that's dead yet completely. The first initial take at it was. There's been a few votes. The board in general has approved feasibility, has approved the grant writing funds. I mean, these feasibility studies are fairly expensive. They've also approved the grant writing and the engineering. I don't know, when was that? About a year ago? No, 6 months ago. And I'm trying to think of any other votes that we've been doing on fiber.
I think that's pretty much it, but we did approve the feasibility study and we voted to go ahead and let's see what kind of grants are available. And I think that pretty much tells us where we're at. We are going forward from that aspect. Accord, it did stop.
So would that be the same vote in the end? If you go to them with all this data and this business point, if it's a 4-4, it's dead?
It's dead right now until we get some clarifications, hopefully. So just to kind of give you a little flavor of what that is the grant dollars, it's a middle mile grant. So it's an active grant. We'll actually know, when's the results come out for that?
I don't know.
Yeah, so I don't think we're too far away from results being on that. So if Accord does get those middle mile grants, specifically from that build from Southeastern to Rush Shelby, then that is the case where I would take it back to the board and ask for approval. That's about 20, I forget exactly how many miles it is. 28 miles.
Or we get a somewhat dictated route.
Yep.
Otherwise, they're gonna pick it out themselves.
I don't know if I answered that gentleman's question completely.
Thank you.
Thank you. What other questions we got? I would suggest to, so kind of a call to action here. Number one, those FCC, and we'll send out a bunch of information on this. Those FCC maps are really important. If you get a chance, please look at yours online and help us out there. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Now, is the internet gonna be completely standalone? Will the electric side subsidize it?
No, by law, we can't subsidize it that way. So the way that,
The electric bills will not be affected by the internet
no,
whatsoever.
actually, it could help the electric bills.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, second question. In your 42 million, do you have a facility here for more warehouse space?
We actually do have some facility dollars because we know Southeastern had to actually build a new facility in order to house a lot of that. So yeah, there are some dollars in the feasibility, but to answer your question maybe a little bit more directly, those are some of the studying type things when we get to beefing up the business case, once we get, if we get grants.
42 million doesn't necessarily cover everything that's gonna cost.
I would say it's a rough estimate based upon last January. But it's very high level.
But there's still gonna be probably some stuff that falls through the cracks and was not covered.
I'm sure there are some things that'll have to be. Good example is when I was talking about the make ready cost. We used what an average co-op sees as a make ready cost. That doesn't mean that's what we're making. And when I say make ready, what that means is having to update poles because they're not tall enough. We estimated using some other co-ops data around what those make ready costs are. That can make and break one of these projects, right? I mean, you're talking millions of dollars. So part of the study that we'll have to do is study that further, right? We're gonna have to go out and do some statistical analysis, to really beef up what is that number to make sure that it's not way, way off. So to answer your question, we're high level on this feasibility. There is definitely way more studying that's going to be done that can change that number up and down.
I understand.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Yep. No, thank you for your question.
I'm just gonna offer a suggestion. When this survey came through, it came through with our bill that comes, most people, there's a lot of people that do through their bank and they don't even look at that paper that comes in. Now, you had a great turnout. Somehow, some way, I suggest that you get something on that paper, on that envelope, a stamp on it to let them know that it has to do with broadband and not their electric bill. That's just a suggestion, because I think I've talked to a lot of people that had no idea that this was happening tonight because of that envelope.
Yep.
Threw it away.
Yeah,
I'm not
no.
complaining, I'm just moving forward to help you with your communication with your customers, with the co-op. My suggestion is to do that.
That's a good.
Do something like that, to let them know it has to do, because you're serving a lot of customers that are elderly, you know, that 60, 70, 80-year-old, that they just, it's already being paid for. It's all good. I don't have to look at that thing. So,
I hear you.
okay, moving forward, just consider that.
When we do these, we do try to. So we actually work with a firm called Inside Information. And so what they do is they help us on the marketing of this. We actually, this one went through mail too, right?
It went to mail and email.
So it would have went to email, mail, and then we did in the magazine. So it was in the magazine, mail, email blast, Facebook, and a bill stuffer.
So it came all the way.
So I think the only way one thing we did learn is a lot of some emails, because it's a mass email, hit junk. And so one thing we are learning is that, because once you take it out of your junk, it recognizes our EMC stuff and it won't let you do that it won't automatically do that. So that's one thing we've learned, but we did hit this survey with, the only thing we did was Greensburg Daily News and the radio. Those were really the only two mediums we didn't use that we typically do. But honestly, I think the results, we got what we needed to as far as really giving us a pretty good validation point on that take rate.
But if you're wanting them to do that FCC thing,
Ah,
that's what I'm talking about.
I got you.
To them, if you need those people to do that.
yes,
So that's where I'm going with that information.
I got you.
Okay.
Yeah, and they didn't give us hardly any time. Literally, we just got the maps not that long ago. They just released them and they're saying by mid-January it's done. So
That's way a month.
good point. We'll take a look at that whole, how we plan on that. What other questions? We have plenty of time. Is there anything online?
Ron says, have we contacted our state and federal legislation to help in grant dollars?
Yes, so yes, I'm in constant actually, Randy has reached out to me and we've been in constant communication, Randy Fry. So yes, and then through our statewide association, we have access to the lobbying firms that we use from our statewide association. So yes, we are very, very connected state legislators when it comes to this fiber, and they're all very, very supportive, and they see just as much, if not more, data around the need than I do. So they're very interested and committed to this for sure.
I think it was probably in one of the slides, but what percentage of our needs are reliant on grant?
So I'm going to ask somebody to do the math here, but essentially 13 million out of 42 million.
25.
Yeah, about 25%.
And looking at those who have requested other counties, what is the success rate?
It ranges all over the place is the answer I'm going to give you, but what I have in Orange County is one that saw almost 60% of funding. Yes. But it's all over the board. I would say that and it's hard to compare to what other folks got because there's never been grants that are going to be, there's way, way more dollars available in the next coming years than have ever been. But then you got to look at what's happened to the cost over that time too, right? We all know cost of everything's gone up. Well, so did these components and things that you need.
Speaking of cost, is there any potential cost savings to the user? Is there any cost savings there at all?
As far as to,
I'm getting a lot of blanks here.
Are you asking for the price, the entry price?
Yeah, is there anything potentially here that we could save because we're going to sign up for $70 a month?
If we had 100% membership sign up,
Yeah.
we could probably lower the cost. It's really based on that take rate
Yeah.
and to make it feasible and to be able to pay it over 16 years.
And for
So
those that can't afford,
there is some government government programs right now that actually do help with the cost of internet. And that would be something that we've partnership with as long as those grants and fundings was there to help lower the cost of that. But in order to make it feasible, we have to make the company survive. And at this point, that's the price point that we'd have to
that
charge.
but I will tell you without naming co-ops names, some folks that have gotten into this that had 40% take rates, they're seeing 60% take rates and they've already lowered their prices. And so you got to remember too, we're nonprofit, right? So if there are margins or profitability on the broadband side, that only goes to help the electric members. And the electric members are going to benefit off of dollars that are needed to update poles and things like that. And those don't get charged to the electric business. So there's a lot of wins there.
thank you. So you're in the process of replacing poles right now.
Yes, sir.
Are you going to make poles tall enough?
We are. We have been since, I don't even know what year, it was actually prior to me here, been using the class poles that you need to make sure that you have fiber. Yes, that is our standardized pole of replacement at this point.
What are the red ribbons and white ribbons on them?
Ooh, I don't know about white. I don't know. That wouldn't be us. We have little red tags that actually get nailed to the pole itself. There's a ribbon on it. That's not us.
He's talking about tree trimming, I think.
Could be.
I think it's PSC.
Yeah.
It's a red ribbon. They're gonna cut it down. If it's got a green on it, they're gonna trim it back to get
This,
this.
this is on the pole itself.
Yes. Trees that are within 10 feet of the line or the pole, they'll put the ribbon on the pole. That just tells the technician, follow the line.
Yeah, it's no indication that we use little red. We have to per code that gets nailed to it. It'll be red.
Can you tell us as members, what can we do to help speed up the process and maybe what some of the bigger barriers are we getting pushback from the board?
I'm gonna let Steve take any.
Well, as everyone was talking, I was thinking about what can you do? Voice to your district members, the directors. What your concerns are. As far as hurrying it along, I mean, I think this grant money where we have it right now, we're kind of waiting to see what's available.
So no matter what, we're still having to wait for 2024 to even have an answer as to what we'll do.
On the B grant, yes, there are some other grants, and don't think for a minute that we have plenty in this business case that's ongoing work that we have to do regardless. If the grants come out successful, you have to do this work anyway. So we are, from an operational standpoint, we are doing work and we're continuing to do work on this business case. And, if these grants too, they come out and tell you this Okra grant's going to be, submissions are here. They tell you what the requirements are right before they open it up. And then they open it up, you submit, and then a lot of times they'll tell you, and then you got to wait and it gets delayed.
Which I get that. And a year on your side of the fence is not very long because you have a lot to accomplish and it's a hurry up and wait. On our side,
Yep.
as the consumer, a year to have an answer, it feels like there's something we could be doing in the process to help scooch everything along.
Yeah, from an operational standpoint, and I'll let board or Steve talk about the board, but from an operational standpoint, right now, to answer your question, the FCC maps are huge. And I agree with, we need to really make sure that we market the crap out of that. That's a huge thing that can help us get more dollars. Is there anything else from an operational standpoint that?
Unfortunately, I can't say there is, even with grant dollars and getting shovels on the ground, it's a wait. Unfortunately, we can't start it tomorrow.
I do appreciate you though offering there, and I have no problem calling for action. So if we get to a point where, operational, I'm not talking about the board, I'm just talking about from an operational standpoint, we will communicate to the members if there's anything that we think can speed things along. I will tell you though, the legislators are very in favor for this, already sort of on our side, but it doesn't hurt for them to hear things too, right? So be in contact with those people. They are fighting, I feel like, very, very, very hard. Our local representatives are, but it doesn't hurt to hear from you all. And it doesn't hurt for members to, I'll be quite honest, I log when I get phone calls. There are the stories that you all have in this room are very important when it comes to a decision point on this. And I think it's very important to talk to your board member about this because it's amazing to hear some of the stories of literally like kids at the McDonald's in a back of a van downloading because that's the only hotspot. You got to hear those scenarios for it to sit in your belly. And I hear them. I'll be quite honest. I get a call every 3 days talking about their scenarios. And I want to encourage that because I document those and I'll be using those as justifications and scenarios when we get closer to. Those are impactful. And it's unbelievable to see the different scenarios and the different barriers that people go through. You know, you think you all have the same problem, and it's interesting to see the different things that go on, even from my own friends that I hear this from too.
This is just a comment, but it's hard to talk to your board members when only 3 of them show up to the meeting about broadband.
I know we have at least one on virtual as well.
Okay.
And I just want to iterate that. Yeah, make sure you talk to the director that represents your district. Let them hear what you have to say.
Darren Kemp from Washington County. When we communicate with the district director, is it to help build stories for the business case, or is it to help influence a vote on whether we proceed with the project on broadband? I guess I'm just sensing a little bit of mixed signals about whether the board is fully committed to seeing this project through or not. I just wanted some very clear statement that the board is behind it, that there aren't necessarily district members that we need to try to convince that this is an issue. I just want to understand what the purpose of.
Any information that I get from members, I'm documenting, logging. That information will be shared with the board. I don't know if that answers your question.
Maybe I'll just ask more direct. Are there any board members that aren't in favor of finding a way to provide access to broadband?
And we can vote them out in spring.
Back to our point.
What figure today, because he wanted to say a few things.
I'll talk for a minute if I might.
Sure.
And I can get long-winded, so somebody, but I'm gonna step up here if I might. My name's Dale Warnke. I'm District 6 Director, Northern Jennings County. I want to reiterate 2 or 3 things. First of all, I want to say thank you. I know Brett said that tonight. Thank you for being here. This is what we need. We need engagement. This is your co-op, not ours. We work for you. You own this. We don't. Secondly, please don't apologize for criticizing. You have every right, every one of you have every right to do that. We are responsible to you. Okay? Thirdly, to address the elephant in the room, we are where we are. From my standpoint, it's unfortunate that Jackson County, Southeastern, and everybody else is further along than we are. If I had a rewind button, I'd hit it. But I don't. We don't.
They made a mistake.
So, yeah, is that the board's fault?
I'll let you assign it wherever you think it might be. There's been many changes in this REMC. It's not anybody one's fault. It's just the way it happened.
Well, in general.
Yeah. I mean, I'll own what has occurred while I've been on the board. But to try to sit here and justify why we are where I can't speak to when, what was decided before I was a director. I have no idea. It's unfortunate, and I know it's more painful for you than what it might be for us. But also bear in mind that I'm dealing with the same thing. Other directors are dealing with the same thing of lack of internet at home, just like you are. We're not sitting in a Taj Mahal up here and got high-speed internet, and you don't. We're dealing with the same things depending on where we're living. Okay, so I don't want to disavow it because it is what it is. And if somebody has an idea of how we can change the history, then by all means, please suggest it. Unfortunately, I don't. I think there's things that are incumbent upon us as directors. And you alluded to partnerships, EDC, the schools, healthcare. I think it's incumbent upon us to develop some contingency plans in the event that the grant writing doesn't show favorable results. Because let me tell you, people, that's a possibility. I'm not going to say a probability, but it is a possibility. And if that does not materialize like we hope it does, spending $42 million of your money is going to be a lot harder to do. I am conservative by nature. I work hard for my money. I'm going to be conservative with my assets. I'm going to be more conservative with your assets. The business case has to make sense. And if it doesn't, regardless of how many people are in here
And how many people say, I want high-speed internet? If the business case doesn't make sense, I, for one, will not vote for it. That's my responsibility to the co-op and my responsibility to you. One thing I want to caution against, when you see our case study, Jackson County did it, Southeastern did it, Johnson County did it. Everybody does their case study. And their case study is their case study. And ours is ours. Be very, very careful in saying, well, they did this, here are the rates they had. One size fits one, and our information is our information. You can look at it for guidance, but I would caution you to say that Jackson County had a 60% take rate, therefore we can experience a 60% take rate. Southeastern got 44% of their money through grants, so therefore we can assume 48%. That's not the case. As far as being where we are, behind the curve, maybe, in your words, I would also suggest that by virtue of being where we are, there is more grant money available now than what there may have been had we embarked upon this venture several years ago. We may be further along, but it may be a greater cost because we have greater opportunity to get some grant dollars now. So I appreciate you being here. I appreciate your engagement. And again, from my standpoint, and I'm one director, but this case has to make sense. I will not put Decatur County RAMC at risk because people want high speed. I'd like to have it too. But I'm not going to do that with your money. So, thank you.
So the question was, who is against it? That for the board, who's against it? That was the question.
I can speak for me. I'm not going to speak on behalf of another director.
Is it fair to ask who on the board has voted no against broadband?
But there has been no ultimate decision on broadband at this point. I mean,
Okay, but when we are trying to speak to our representatives, it would be helpful to know if our representative is in favor or against it. Can we have that? Do we get that answer? You know what I'm saying?
If you were to contact them.
I would suggest contacting them.
I mean, my numbers, all of our numbers are on the website. Call me. 812-343-9274. Call me.
Every one of their cell phones and email is out on.
I mean, there were several people in tonight's meeting that I have communicated with about broadband over the last 8, 10, 12 months. They were here tonight, and I appreciate the engagement. We didn't always see eye to eye, but the message I told them is the same message I'm saying now. For me, I will not make a decision that puts Decatur County RAMC at risk because we want high-speed internet or we need high-speed internet. And I think there is a need. I think COVID did nothing but exacerbate it. It threw gasoline on the fire. That's all it did. It just went poof because we saw the real need for it. The other thing, technologically speaking, and I'm not a technical person, that's probably the most technical person here. But bear in mind that as quickly as technology changes, and I know Brett alluded to the fact that you can't get faster than fiber. What if you can get 80 or 90% the speed of fiber and somebody shoots a satellite up there that can do it? And we've embarked upon a $42 million project. What then? It's not quite as simple as you want to sometimes believe, okay? And those are the things we're looking at. Those are the things I'm looking at as a director. I have a fiduciary responsibility to be true to you and to take care of your money. I'll be happy, again, my number is 812-343-9274. Dale Worthing, call me, text me, email me, I don't care. We'll talk. You want to do coffee, we'll do coffee. I can only speak for and I'm not going to try to speak for the other 7 directors. But I would encourage you, talk to your director, talk to other directors. If you're not in my district, call me if you want to talk. I'll let you know my thoughts. They're no different than what I just shared. Thank you.
Questions? All right, we're going to wrap up. Is there any final questions?
One final comment. We just moved on 100 at the corner of 100 and 1300 and Offrey Township, I'm sorry. And we have a neighbor that's trying to sell land and he can't sell it because no high-speed internet.
Yep, we actually brought in a group of realtors when we were doing strategic planning and we heard it loud and clear. Yep.
I just want to make a note, like, I know you guys are talking about these maps that you guys are wanting to have updated and it's critical that it's done. He kind of walked us through it a little bit here. Is there going to be really detailed information on how to do it? Because a lot of people can't even do a speed test on their phones. I mean, I even struggle with it sometimes. So,
Yes, I plan on providing something. We'll send it out. We'll put it on the website. We'll send it out via email. But we'll get that out soon.
gonna need to tell me to click here and.
He's got screenshots and everything, I'm telling you.
Okay.
I have some from the Indiana Broadband question on the back. It's got YouTube videos of how to do it and from that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Just one comment to say, we're falling behind. Whether it be education, agriculture, we're falling behind. Medical field in Decatur County, Jennings County, and we've got to do something to catch up. We've got to do something to catch up because I know a couple cooperatives who have embarked on this and their land prices have gone up. Their education's gotten better. Their schools have gotten stronger. And it's been well worth it, the money they spend. Think of our future. Think of our grandchildren's future. Think of your kids' future.
Thank you.
Well said.
So my husband's listening to this meeting on his way home. He says, what's the feasibility on our fiber optic? Are we gonna eventually be able to get 1 gig, 10 gig or more? Man, you guys keep talking about like that $79, $75 price range. What about those of us who need something faster? Is that gonna be available?
So
I mean, I pay for it. I tell you.
with the feasibility study, we would offer 1 gig by 1 gig. The technology that would be put in place could probably offer up to 10 gig.
Okay.
Not saying that's something we'd offer right away, but the technologies that would be in place with the fiber network would be up to 10 gig. Not saying that's something we would offer right off the bat, but we would offer a 1 gig by 1 gig.
Okay. And Brett, you said something about knitting stories. Like, do we just tell, I've got several. I can tell you right now how it affected our family the last couple of years. And to bring up the whole realtor thing, I move in a heartbeat. I'm tired of being in the dark ages personally. But, my kids say, well, what are you gonna do, Mom? When they ask about internet, I'm gonna say, well, I have to skirt the situation. Because if they ask what we have nothing. And nobody's gonna buy our house. Because there's nothing, because you can't survive without it anymore. And it's just really, but I can give you stories if you wanna listen.
I will actually give you a call if you don't mind.
Okay.
We can talk through this.
General comment. I appreciate the thought process of saying there might be extra grant money and stuff like that available than there was 5 years or 7 years ago, but that decision, actually it's costing me money because I've had to pay twice as much for my internet as what this is showing. So thanks for trying to save me money, but you had it if that was the thought process all along. So, and for me to live, around the County line, be so close to SEI and wish they could build something out to us. I mean, if they could offer me something, I'd jump on it in a second. So to hear this 5-year timeline is like a nightmare. When I came in here, that's just awful to hear. That's what really almost sounds like best case scenario when it's all said and done. So once again, not a question or anything, but I appreciate trying to get something done, but it is behind the 8 ball and concerned about that part of it. So
Yeah, when we found out the timing on these beads, there's no reason to come in here and sugarcoat something that's going to be dependent. I mean, this is 42 million. These are huge funding opportunities that are available, and I'd be crazy to sit up here and tell you that it's going to happen any quicker than those timelines as far as the grant programs.
So I live in one of the desert areas, so I have the satellite on my house roof. And so I work at the hospital. And so with COVID and everything else, I've had to staff a lot from home. And by that, I mean, I'm the person doing the staffing, finding the person to work and stuff. So for me, a Wi-Fi doesn't work because it won't do it satellite. So I have to use the connected computer. So I can't bring my computer from home to do the work. So I have to get a message on my cell phone. Well, for me to get a message on my cell phone, I have to run out to the middle of our property and do this number. And then I'm hoping the message is still there by the time I get inside the house to dial that message into the computer. and see if I can get the staffing. So a large percentage of the time, I just drive to work because it's easier to run into work and do the staffing that I need to do to turn around. So I'm driving an hour and a half between getting there and coming back to do what I need to do because I don't have the internet access to do that kind of thing. And so I'm like, somebody said the 5-year plan, and I'm like, what? You know, because I live in the area where Southeastern's just on the other road behind me. And it's like, really? I'm gonna be too old really soon by the time you get it working. I said something about 60 and old.
Yeah, I mean, I want to say it's well, there.
All right, any final questions? It doesn't stop here. If you all have questions, feel free. Just 3391 is our number here in the office. You can ask for me. More than happy to answer any questions you may have or any updates. Thank you all for coming. I really appreciate your time tonight.
Yeah, I was hoping it was gonna be like, okay, next year.